Hi, everyone. Hi. And I have Moriah and Hope with me today, who is an author of a wonderful book that I'm really excited to share with you. And I'm sure you can see that Moriah is surrounded by greenery there. It's springtime and we're very happy. I know she's living by the coast and it's a very nice energy that she brings with us today. So, good morning, Moriah. How are you?
Good morning. I'm very good, thank you. It's a beautiful day at last.
Yes, yes, I'm enjoying it. Um, so this book, this is one of the main reasons I wanted to talk to you because I came across your book and it's beautiful. The cover is enticing, and I recommend everybody goes and looks at the cover. But it's it meant a lot to me when I first read it. So can you tell us a little bit about what brought you to write this book and what it's about, how you're intending it to be
Mm.
read?
Yeah, I didn't set out to write it. I always knew there was at least one book in me. I'd been writing for years, but writing mainly training manuals and development courses and all sorts of other things. And back in, I think, September 2019, I was on holiday. So it was my last foreign holiday, really, before COVID hit. And I remember lying on the beach and being given this message, you need to write a book. And I was given the book title, and it was called Love Your Karma. And I remember thinking, you must be joking. And Love Your Karma was really connected to the soul contract work that I do, the numerology. So I work with the numerology of people's birth names, and that it produces your purpose and your goals and your challenges. And that was what I was being asked to talk about, that the karma is actually the real gift in our life because it's the challenges that we've grown through. It's a bit like the orchid moving through the no the lotus moving through
Oh,
the
yeah.
mud, becoming glorious. Um, I didn't do anything about it until about 9 months later, and I came across the Unbound Press, and thought, okay, this actually feels like a really good match. Let's progress this. So I actually signed up as an author, started writing the book, and I pretty much wrote the entire book up until around about springtime 2022. Took me that long as I was working as well, running a business.
Mhm.
Um, and just as I finished the book, uh, the energy for it completely went. It was like I had no energy for it whatsoever. It's almost like I had to finish writing the book for some reason, and then the book fell away. It's like there was nothing. I can't easily describe the feeling, but I knew
Mhm.
that I wasn't going to publish that book. It was like a warm-up act in some way.
Okay.
Um,
I
and then,
understand. I do
yeah,
understand. Yes.
yeah. And then there was this other book that came through that was more mainstream. So this one had been quite spiritual, I suppose, because it was about karma and also pragmatic about how you deal with challenge in your everyday life, and you hold space for your own feelings and don't deny them and all that kind of thing. And then this other slightly more pragmatic mainstream book came through called Life is a Bowl of Spaghetti. That existed for about 2 months. And and I drew the essence out of that, which kind of made sense because that's what I do a lot with clients, especially
Mhm.
corporate clients, is helping them understand challenges and how to hold space for themselves to move through. Um, but then that fell away. And then the message came through, and it was really clear that actually what I needed to do was write a book about my own life. And that is something I would never have done, especially share really personal stories. Um, but it was really clear to me the stories were lining up, and I started to see little glimpses of my life. And it's almost like, those strings that we can hang on our walls and have pegs with photos on. It
Yeah.
looked like that. Like
Mhm.
pathway was set out, and all I had to do was follow each story that dropped into my head, or each memory, to be fair, it was a memory.
Mhm.
And so that's what I did. I started with that. Um, and as I did it, it was really healing. And I got into 3 weeks of writing solidly. And I was washing up one day, and this is often when the ideas drop in, something quite mundane. But the book title came in, which was called Labyrinth, My Journey to Belonging. and literally in its fully formed state. And so the more I engaged with the book and the more I wrote it, the deeper I went into it, the more information was revealed. And some of the things I'd written and channeled a few years ago came into it, because it's not just my stories, it's also messages from what I would call the consciousness of the labyrinth. So that's dealt with quite a lot in the book itself.
So we
And
need
then
to read the book.
need
The
to read
thing
the
is,
book. And
you can't explain the whole book
no, and the
when you're
labyrinth
talking
is
about such
no,
deep
it's
concepts.
difficult. So it contains my stories, mostly in chronological order, but not always. It contains glimpses specifically of where I gave away my power, where I didn't feel good enough, um, and how I started to wake up more and more and more to myself and to my spiritual life, as it were, which kind of merged into my actual life. There is no separation these days. And what I would say to anyone who is writing this kind of book about yourself, whether you publish it or not, my experience was by the time I'd finished it, and I did it in 3 months solid, and I
Really?
was working with clients as well. So
Yes.
I'd reduced my client intake and I was writing solidly. Is that I felt as though some part of me had been significantly healed.
Oh,
It,
that's
it was
wonderful.
like, yeah, it was like what had been still a split, the spiritual part of me and the material or the corporate part of me, which was my
Mm,
life
mm,
23 years ago, um, had somehow integrated. And I had come home to myself. And um, so it literally was, it supported and facilitated that final piece about journey to belonging.
mm.
And it was published 2 weeks before my 60th birthday. And that felt really
Oh,
significant.
that's
Really,
lovely. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
That's a gift to yourself.
It
And
was.
that's at a turning point. Because
It
I think
was. I would never
experience,
have thought it, to be honest.
no.
And
Well,
I
you
was
didn't plan it that way.
I didn't plan it that way.
No.
Obviously, some part of me did. The wiser part of me planned it
Yeah,
that way.
yeah,
But it
yeah.
was like that. It was quite magical in the way that it fell in and the ideas fell in.
Hmm. Yeah. And of course, we take ourselves into whichever job, career, relationship, situation, context that we find ourselves unraveling in, to experience and the challenges of life, to experience ourselves in that, and to find that harmony and balance. I believe that's what we're meant to do. And this whole concept of getting older is wonderful and not to be decried. It is, yes, you can be the best you can be, but it doesn't matter who you are.
Mm.
Age and experience does count. Not everybody makes it to this age. So we're here for a reason. And if we have longevity, then we are here to share that message as well, in my philosophy. So it's wonderful that you've written this book then. So what's been your journey as an author then, as a writer? Because you've obviously found a good publisher. You've written some practice warm-ups, self-expression books, ideas, and then you've been enlightened and manifested this wonderful creation. What's happening for you on the right? How did that feel for you, all of this as a writer? I'm just full of
Yeah.
questions.
It's how does it feel as a writer? I was still surprised when I published it. It's like, oh my goodness, I've actually done it. And
Mm,
it's funny because I remember back at school, or I had a memory of being back at school and my English teacher saying to me, because I used to write for the guy, Radio for the Blind. I used to
oh,
write
yeah.
stories when I was 15 and they were
Oh,
read out loud for Radio for the
mm,
Blind. And I remember my English teacher who always supported me saying, you're going to write lots of books. You're
mm,
here as a writer. And of
mm,
course, I went to uni. I didn't study English actually. But then I started a corporate career and I still wasn't writing. But I've always been creative,
mm,
always. And the times that I'm not creative are usually the times when I I kind of feel a bit low, because when that energy is running through me, I feel
Mm,
more alive. So I usually need some kind of creative project going. As an author, I think the thing that really encourages me and I enjoy most is what feels like a magical process. So the ideas dropping in, and the more that I engage, the more ideas drop in. The more I engage, the more connections are made from different parts of the book, and the more aha moments. So it feels like I'm being led on this magical
mm, mm,
journey. And I use that word advisedly, because magic is there all the time in our lives, but um, I think it takes us to actually witness it and observe it and acknowledge it for what it is.
and to
Um,
identify it in others.
yeah,
Mm,
and to identify it in others. And
mm.
previous to this book, in 2016, I had a hip replacement because I had
Oh
osteoarthritis.
gosh. Mm,
So that was major. But what
yeah.
happened during that process of recovery was, each day I kept hearing the message, go and write. So I would write
Mm,
one narrative for each of the cards of the card deck that I'd been developing. So
mm.
I was developing something called the Magician's Toolkit,
Yeah, I was just
which,
going to ask you about this. I was going to
yeah, it's
bring
this
this into
one. So this
conversation.
is the
Yeah.
first product that I wrote, channeled, wrote,
Mm,
created. And again, that was another similar process. And this one is all about how to lead, or it's supporting you leading a magical life, following intuition, tuning in and working with synchronicities and the soul. And it's quite a shamanic pack, that one. So I'd already had experience of that.
mhm,
Uh, and it was so that was 2016, but I didn't publish it till 2017.
mm,
So I
mm.
do think these things have a timing.
They do.
It's
Yes.
taken a long time. So
Mm,
I've got another pack that I started, that just arrived, that channeled in 2012. I've done all the artwork for it, but I've still not published it.
mm.
And yet the
So
book, 3 months.
yes, well, yes, and obviously there's a purpose for the book. And perhaps in some ways not so much work because of the artwork involved in producing cards. But
Mm.
I'm thinking of the procrastination and the patience and the tolerance of self that you have to have as a writer when
Mm.
things don't go your way. You know, if you're writing and
Yeah.
writing and writing, nothing's getting published, or you're getting some small amount of success, but you want some more. Or some, not all writers want the success; they just want to get it out in their own way. But
Mm.
so you've got quite a lot of personal qualities that are suitable for being an author in that sense, because it's like giving birth, isn't it? You have to have that gestation period. And yet, as you say, when it came to this labyrinth, it pushed.
It did work. And maybe it's because I'd done the ground, maybe the other book was
Yeah,
the groundwork.
yeah.
So I had developed the discipline of actually sitting at my desk at my
Mm,
laptop. And actually with the book, I was very disciplined. I used to get up and walk the beach at West Wittering every single morning. And at something like 7 or 7:30, then I'd either go to the beach cafe or come home and I'd write. So
mm,
sometimes I would write freehand with pen and paper, and sometimes I would just write straight into the computer.
mm,
Um, so
mm.
I was very lucky. I also had been studying the art of storytelling for my marketing.
Okay,
Uh,
yes,
and
yes.
I'd been working with a storyteller as well.
Mm,
And um, I engaged with her because for me, it's quite helpful to get feedback quite quickly,
mm,
um, in
mm,
terms of how things are landing. So
mm,
that was a great support as well. And the publishing company too, they were very supportive.
mm.
Uh,
So
and
do
it was
you?
very much about just letting the book lead.
Yes, I think especially in that kind of book where it is quite profound in lots of ways. But I'm thinking then as a speaker, do you speak? Because everything you're talking about here lends itself to producing an easy talk, a signature talk that would open up a lot of doors for further sales of your book, etc. But also to reach other people as a speaker. Is that something that interests you?
it's not something I'm drawn to be honest. I mean, in previous occupations, I was up in front of groups training people and working with large groups. I haven't tended to do that lately, and I've stuck more to podcasts. I mean, I am an introvert, so
Mm,
it's not one of the great things that I would be jumping up and down to do, but I
mm,
tend to let life lead. So in the same way that I let the book lead, I let life lead me. So
mm,
instead of having, I don't know that I've got a big vision for my life, but my life is unfolding
mm,
in beautiful ways. So I'm enjoying that, and I'm open to speaking.
mm.
I'm
Yeah,
capable of doing it. I'm
yeah.
open to it, but I do tend to follow what's next.
Mm,
And at the moment, I think I'm in a similar position to where I was just before this book was birthed, where I've taken 9 months to really land in a new relationship and in Cornwall,
mm,
um, which is where I came down last June.
mm,
But I can now feel that there are new aspects of my business coming online,
mm,
and various card decks are wanting attention. So
mm,
there will be more writing and there'll
mm.
be more events, but they might be different. But it's interesting because since finishing the book, it's like my relationships have taken center stage and my work is peripheral. Whereas before, my work was center stage and everything else was peripheral.
Yeah,
Um,
I can understand that. I think also there's something here about relocating. I think in numerology and astrology, when you relocate, you position yourself in a different energy sphere, a zone, which vortex,
Absolutely.
whichever you want to say. And when you enter a relationship and it's a partnership,
Mm.
then obviously you're open to different energies and different uh, adjustments that not just on a personality or psychological level. I'm talking about a spiritual soul energy level.
Yeah. I mean, I was living in West Wittering near Chichester, and it was a beautiful, beautiful beach. People would travel miles, hours to get there. And I
Mm,
had the joy of walking it every single day. I had a local pass, so I could get there reasonably cheaply. And it was wide and expansive, and I felt free there. And here there's kind of elemental groves and woodland walks, and but it's rugged and it's beautiful and wild at the same
mm,
time. And that's
mm.
one of the things I think I'm tuning into, as I was encouraged to tune into the land.
We need to grow in ourselves, and sometimes that relocation is what we need. I'm not saying that's my path, but for
Yeah.
you, this is something that you're consciously, it's the awareness, isn't it, that you're talking about? I think you're very obviously a very aware person and you're open. And I love that. I love that you're so open. And
Yeah, I mean, it's the first time I've done it. So I did, as part of the story as well, that's in the book, I did leave my corporate life, and we brought my husband at the time, we brought the children down to Sussex, West Sussex.
Mhm.
Um, and we did that all within, well, we'd both resigned and got cash buy for the house within 10 days. So it was,
I know.
my
So things
parents,
happen.
our parents thought we were bonkers, but it just happened. It was like boom, 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 boom. All the cards
Yeah.
just,
That's when you
so
know you're in the right place, even if the
yeah,
outcome doesn't ultimately have what people's idea of success is. The success is the journey, isn't it?
yeah,
I
I
think with the
think so.
labyrinth, the whole idea is that if we get lost in a maze, don't we? And the spaghetti, even that you were talking about earlier, life
Mm,
can feel like a bowl of spaghetti, and that we're in a maze, and we can't be complacent and just go with the flow. But because we have to be vigilant, don't we? In that
we do.
openness to being led by life.
Journey.
But it's and having it
Yeah.
unfold. I think that's the hero's journey, isn't it?
Mm.
When it comes to
And I think,
writing.
well, the idea of the labyrinth is it feels like a maze, but it's really not. So you start walking the path, especially with a
Mm,
7-turn labyrinth, you start walking the path and you feel like you're double backing on yourself, which of course is what we do in life.
mm.
Uh,
Yeah.
but actually, it's a pathway. And so one of the messages that I used to be given when I was going through, the pain of the osteoarthritis, because I was also going through
Yeah.
menopause, divorce.
Oh yes, a difficult
arthritis,
time.
and
Mm,
having to rent for the first time and getting used to co-parenting with our teenage boys.
mm,
And I kept hearing the message, there is a pathway through the pain. Um, and looking back on it, that was my early 50s, early to mid 50s. And I would
mm.
say that was my hardest decade, really. But it
Yeah.
was also the one that brought me, I suppose, brought me the most creative value, because the creativity in my business saw me through that really well. So I was led very well through that.
Mm.
Um,
I do believe that the menopause is a doorway for women to choose their life after that,
yeah,
to have that process of shedding and
yeah,
reinventing, rebirthing yourself. So it's
yeah.
amazing. So,
And to really, coming, I think belonging for each of us is going to look different, but I think ultimately belonging is about really staying true to yourself and your
yes,
path and your
be
soul's journey.
belonging to self in some ways.
Yeah.
Yes. So I do recommend that everybody grabs a copy of your book. How do they find your book? Where is it available?
The biggest seller is obviously Amazon. It's on Amazon as a Kindle as well as a hardback. It looks like this. So it picks up journey, obviously with the feet, but also the beach. Um,
Mm,
and that's the easiest place to get it. But you can also buy it from Barnes and Noble and on all the other Waterstones,
right.
various other
Mm.
booksellers.
Yes, that's lovely. So I'll put the details in the description of this interview.
Mhm.
And so just before we finish then, is there anything else that you're about to do? Because it sounds like you're just happy where you are at the moment. Is there anything else that you want to
Yeah,
do?
I'm really happy where I am at the moment. There are new things bubbling. So I have been working with entrepreneurs and business leaders and directors and others who are wanting really for their life to change dramatically. So I've been working with people with their family systems, with their soul family and their star family, and with their businesses to create clear transformation. So there's been a system that's been downloading to me, kind of a spiritual system,
Okay.
which clears away all the energetic blocks that a lot of other people can't get to.
Mm,
So what I'm discovering and realizing is that I'm using this with directors in their boards and entrepreneurs who are following the energetic signature of their businesses to
mhm,
help them expand their businesses and clear away the blocks. But also for people, I've been helping people go through divorce and clearing up the messiness energetically so
mm.
that people can just glide through it, people through menopause.
How would anybody contact you if they took up on this at the moment?
Yeah,
What's the
they
best
can
way to
follow me.
find you?
Well, I don't actually talk a lot about my work, interestingly, because all of my work comes through referrals.
Oh, I
Uh,
see.
However, I'm going to be talking a lot more about it, and you can follow me on Facebook, but check my private Facebook page because I don't use the business ones very often at all. And I'm on Instagram as well. And people have been asking me to do a podcast, but I'm still not
Mm,
really clear what I'll be podcasting on. But what I tend to do, Victoria, is I let the idea drop in first
mm,
before I start going off.
mm.
So I suspect I will be starting a podcast, but I'm not there yet. But probably the best way to contact me is through Facebook or Instagram.
Okay, then. Well, I'll drop all the details into the description. I hope everybody has enjoyed listening to Mariah talk about her book and her work, and I hope she's inspired you. I feel very relaxed and calm and happy and joyful having spoken with Mariah, and I'm sure you would too. So join her if she does a podcast. Look out for that, and perhaps follow her on her social media, and definitely buy the book. I think it's something you might like to share with other people as well. So thank you very much then, Mariah. Thank you.
And it's worth saying as well, if anyone
Oh,
wants
yeah.
to have a chat, I'm more than open to having a chat if they want to
Oh, that's
explore
nice. Yeah.
working with me as well. I always do that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And I think especially seeing as some of our audience are corporate workers and business owners. So yeah, I think that would be wonderful. And yeah, so this has been lovely. Thank you very much. Goodbye, everybody. See you again soon.
Bye. Thank you.